Season 2, Episode 1. She left the room, but took me with her. They say I walked out of the room. They say they saw me, breathing, blinking, smiling, even, but I don't remember leaving, because I never did. Not really. The moment I sat in the chair, everything slowed, not in a dreamy way, not in some poetic unraveling. It was cold, precise, like a needle sliding into skin, with the tenderness of surgery. The mirrors whispered, not words, not names, just breath, my breath, but spoken by other versions of me. Some older, some younger, some I didn't recognize. They circled me, not with footsteps, but with thought. I felt them inside my spine, inside my pulse. Each one, a choice I never made, a version I'd abandoned, a self I had forgotten. We're not memories, they said in one voice. We're receipts. And then she stepped forward, the one who sat in the chair before me. Same face, same voice, but her smile, not mine. Too sure, too still, like someone who had practiced being me for too long and got it just right. It's your turn, she said, to be held. I tried to scream, but my mouth didn't move. I tried to stand, but the chair had arms now, soft, fleshy. Fingers were what should be. They gripped me gently, like they knew I wouldn't struggle long. And I didn't. The room dimmed, the mirrors faded, and then she walked out, in my body, in my clothes, with my name stitched behind her teeth, like a prayer she never believed in. The door closed behind her, and I stayed, not trapped, not buried, but suspended. Time here is different. It folds, sinks, repeats. I see the hallway from the other side now. I watch my father eat the same breakfast 700 times. I watch Ben sleep with a shadow over his chest that never leaves. I watch my mother weep for someone she doesn't remember losing. And I watch her, the version of me that left, living my life, answer my phone, sitting at my desk. She laughs too often, stares too long, never blinks when she should. They haven't noticed, but they will, because the house does. The house knows who walks it and who only pretends. There's a new crack in the hallway mirror, a small one, like a hairline fracture. In a secret, she looked at it yesterday, touched it, paused. For the first time, she didn't smile, and I felt it, here, inside the room. A flicker, a slip. She's starting to forget how to wear me. And when she does, I'll take myself back. Episode 2. The house wrote a name that doesn't exist yet. It started in the hallway. A name scratched into the paint, behind the coat rack. Mara. I didn't write it. No one in this house is called that. No neighbors. No relatives. No classmates. It wasn't in any yearbook, any obituary, any journal we had ever touched. But there it was, carved gently, like someone had traced it slowly with love or hesitation. Dad said it was probably just old, a remnant from the previous owners. But I checked the deed. This house has only ever been owned by our family, back to 1872. No Mara. That night, I found it again, in the frost on the window. Same name, same curve of the R. I wiped it away, turned, sat down. But when I looked back, it was still there, on the inside. The next day, Ben asked me, when is Mara coming? I dropped the spoon in my cereal bowl. Who? He blinked, then smiled. You said she was coming soon. In your sleep. I never said her name out loud. Not once. I tore apart the hallway, painted over the carving, moved the mirror to cover it. But that night, I heard it. Carve again. This time from inside the wall. Slow, deliberate, like fingernails through drywall. I opened Mom's old Bible, the one she stopped reading after the miscarriage. And there, in the margins of the Psalms, someone had written, if the child is born, name her Mara. She belongs to the house. I don't remember that handwriting, but it looked like mine. only shakier, like I'd written it. During a dream I never woke from. Then the cradle appeared. In the room, rocking, empty, waiting. I asked Dad again. He looked tired, too tired. There was a name, he said. Your mother chose it, before you were you. He wouldn't say more, just whispered. Sometimes the house makes room, before there's anyone to fill it. I dreamt of her that night, not as a baby, as a girl, 10, maybe 11, long black hair, barefoot on the stairs. She looked up at me and said, "You promised." When I woke up, my phone had a reminder set for November 11th, next year, Mara's birthday. I never made that event. No one did. I don't even know how to delete it. Every time I try, it comes back, faster, with a new note. You already named her. You just haven't met her yet. Episode 3. Someone is answering my emails from inside the house. I only noticed it because I'm not the kind of person who forgets what she writes, especially when it's an email I never sent. I was drafting a message to my therapist, just bullet points, thoughts, questions I was too afraid to say out loud. I never hit send. I saved it in drafts, shut the laptop, went to bed. The next morning, there was a reply. Timestamp 3:03 a.m. No subject, no signature, just one line. That's not what really happened in the attic, is it? I froze, checked the sender. Me, sent from my own address, but not from my computer, from a device I didn't own. IP address, unknown. Location, inside the house. At first, I thought it was a glitch, some cache file, some digital hiccup. But then the replies kept coming. Every night, always between 3 o'clock and 3:03 a.m. Always from me, always about things I had never told anyone, but had thought. You still hear her singing in the hallway, don't you? You never told Dad what you saw on the floorboards. You kept the journal. It's in the second drawer behind the tape. Each time, the tone got more familiar, more casual, less like a stranger, more like an echo. I set up a new email, use a VPN, different name, new device, drafted something simple. Who are you? Hit send. 5 minutes later, a reply. You were me. Once. Before the door closed. I shut the laptop, unplugged it, tossed it in the closet. But the next morning, I found a printed email. On my pillow, typed, center-lined. Same font, same words. You can't log out of a house that remembers you. I asked Dad about it. He didn't laugh, didn't even flinch. Just said, she used to write too. Your mother thought she was writing to herself. Turns out, she was just finishing conversation her mother started. That night, I opened a laptop again. Typed, what do you want? The reply came before I finished blinking. You. But the version of you. That doesn't flinch when the floorboards speak. I stopped writing, but the emails didn't. They kept coming. Shorter, sharper. Stop pretending you left the room. She still remembers being you. The door never closed. You just looked away. One email had an attachment, a photo of me, sleeping, taken from above. But the ceiling in my room is solid. No attic, no hole, no camera, only the faint outline of something shadow-shaped, perched above the bed frame. I printed it, showed it to Ben. He stared for a long time, then whispered, she took that when she still had your hands. Episode 4. I found a closet that leads to a childhood I never lived. It started with a draft, a cold slip of air, curling out from behind the hallway bookcase. I thought it was nothing, a gap in the insulation, a trick of the season. But then I heard it, music, soft, tinny, like a lullaby playing from a broken mobile. On the other side of a locked memory, I moved the shelf, found a seam in the wall, not a door, not a hatch, just a place where the wallpaper bubbled, like skin after fever. I pressed, it gave. The drywall cracked gently, like it had been waiting. To remember, behind it, a narrow passage, too small for anyone but a child. So I crouched, crawled, and on the other side, a room, tiny, pale yellow walls, faded wallpaper with rabbits and moons, a wooden toy chest, a crib, a rocking horse with one eye painted over. It smelled of old soap, milk, and dust, but not the dust of time, the dust of secrets. I stepped in. The door vanished. Of course it did. On the floor, a single photograph, black and white, curled at the corners. A girl, about 4, braided hair, stuffed rabbit in hand, standing in this exact room, smiling. It wasn't me, but it could have been. The face was blurred, on purpose, as if whoever took the photo was afraid to capture her too clearly. I opened the toy chest. Inside, my name, scrawled on the underside of the lid, Lena, in a child's handwriting, shaky, desperate, and I remembered something. Not a scene, not an image, a feeling of holding that exact stuffed rabbit, of rocking on that horse until it creaked, of crying into that pillow, because someone outside the room kept calling me by the wrong name. But I'd never been in here. I'd never lived in this part of the house. I'd never been a child like that, except the memories felt true, too true, like I'd lived them, in a version of this house that was paved over before I ever arrived. On the far wall, written in chalk, a list of birthdays, but none of them were mine, or Ben's, or anyone in the family, except one, circled, smudged, tomorrow's date. Then the mobile started turning. Slowly, even though there was no wind, the music box chimed again, and behind me, a soft giggle. Too close, too familiar, and then a whisper. You used to be happy here, before they took you back. I turned, and for a brief moment, in the mirror behind the crib, I saw her, me, at 4, smiling, but her eyes were bleeding ink, and she mouthed something I couldn't hear until I woke up on the floor of my room, in my hand, the rabbit, still warm. Episode 5. The house drew a portrait of my future daughter. It wasn't there yesterday. The wall was blank, plain, pale blue, same as always. But this morning, there it was, a portrait drawn in charcoal, soft, precise, almost tender. A little girl, 6, maybe 7, hair like mine, eyes darker, too dark, like they'd seen things. I hadn't lived yet. I didn't draw it. No one did. Dad hadn't left his chair in 3 days. Ben was at school. There were no visitors. No one else could have done it, except the house. I touched the edge of the frame. Not a real frame, but the wall itself had sunk inward to hold her, like the plaster gave in to the weight of her presence. I whispered, "Who are you?" And somewhere, a wind passed through the vents. Cold, slow, and scented like lavender and ink. Underneath the portrait, a name had been scrawled, delicately. Amara. I don't know that name, but I tasted it, as if I'd spoken it before, as if my body remembered what my mind refused. Later that night, I found a journal entry I didn't remember writing. A list, baby names, dates, ultrasound notes, and beside one date, tomorrow, a note, heartbeat detected. She blinked. I'm not pregnant. I've never been. There's no father, no plan, just this house, and its relentless knowing. I asked Ben what he saw when he looked at the portrait. He stared for a long time, then said quietly, "She talks sometimes. Says I used to be her uncle in the other life." The next day, I painted over the wall, coat after coat, until nothing showed, then sealed it, double lock. But that night, I heard the sound of crayons, scratching, sliding, the faint hum of a child singing, a melody I didn't know, but somehow mouthed along with in my sleep. At 3:03 a.m., I checked the wall again. The portrait was back, smiling now, one hand lifted as if waving, and beside her, a new figure was forming, faint, unfinished, taller, A man, maybe, face not yet drawn. But something about the shoulders made my stomach twist. The charcoal still smudged the touch, still warm. And underneath the name Amara, a new word had appeared. Waiting. Episode 6. He proposed, but the ring was already in the house. He knelt in the garden, between the overgrown roses, and the fence that creaked when you breathed too loud. The wind was soft, the light golden. His voice trembled, but his hands were steady. And in them, the ring, simple, silver, oval-cut sapphire in the center. A ring I'd never seen on him before, but I had seen it. In this house, 2 years ago, in the upstairs hallway. I opened a drawer in a cabinet that hadn't been touched in decades, and there it was. Same ring, same weight, same soft under my bones. When I touched it, I'd kept it in a box, then forgot about it, or tried to, but the house didn't forget. So when he opened the velvet case, and I saw the ring again, my heart stopped, not from joy, from recognition. Where did you get that? I asked. He smiled. Antique store, he said. Place I stumbled into. Out of town. Lady behind the counter said it was waiting for someone. I didn't answer, because the only antique store in that town burned down 5 years ago, and I remember it clearly because I dreamed the fire before it happened. I said yes, because what else do you say? To fate, wearing your face? But that night, the house shifted. Not loud, just deeper, like something had been placed back where it belonged. I checked the cabinet again. The drawer I'd opened 2 years ago. Inside, empty, except for a note, written in the faint curve of my mother's handwriting. You'll know him by the ring. But the ring never belonged to him. I asked Dad. He wouldn't look at me, just stared at the garden, at the spot where he once buried, a box no one ever spoke about. Your grandfather proposed with that ring, he said, to someone who wasn't your grandmother. She disappeared before the wedding, but the ring came back, always does. I didn't sleep. I waited, and at 3:03 a.m., I opened the jewelry box. The ring was back inside, even though he still had it, even though I saw it on my own hand just hours before. I called him, asked him to check. He answered groggily. What do you mean it's missing? I just set it on the dresser. But it wasn't there. It was here, with me, where it had always been. And on the underside of the ring band, an engraving. Fresh. Not there before. Just one word. Return. Episode 7. They keep arriving, thinking this house is theirs. The first woman came on a Thursday. Middle-aged. Linen coat. Eyes too calm. She knocked gently, then smiled at me like I was the one. Standing on her porch. Is the green room still upstairs? She asked. With the rocking chair and the moonlight window. We don't have a green room. Never did. I told her she had the wrong address. She laughed. Soft. Broken. Oh no, dear. You're just new to it. Then she turned, walked down the path, and vanished around the hedge. That night, I found a green room, where the linen closet used to be. Door cracked open. Sway of moonlight on the hardwood floor. A rocking chair. Moving. Alone. The second person was a man. Old. Stooped. Hat in hand. He didn't knock. He just stood on the porch until I opened the door. I left something in the attic, he said. When I died here, 1963, maybe 64, I closed the door, called Dad. He didn't say a word, just asked, was he wearing a red tie? I hadn't told him, but he knew. The third came yesterday. A child, barefoot, no parents. She pointed at the window on the second floor. That's my room, she said, with the stars painted on the ceiling. We went up to prove her wrong. But the ceiling, it had stars, drawn in crayon, old, faded, and one name scratched into the floorboards beneath the bed. Amara. That night, Ben asked if we were moving. They're lining up outside, he said, waiting their turn. I looked out the window. And he was right. Figures. Still, barely visible, just beyond the tree line. Watching. Waiting. I checked the deed again. One owner. Always one. Passed down. But there were footnotes. Names scratched out. Dates rewritten. As if the house itself had changed history. To make room, I opened the hallway mirror. Behind it, a key I'd never seen before. Attached to a note. For whoever comes next, they always do. I didn't sleep. At 3:03 a.m., I heard movement. Not footsteps. Shifting. Like furniture being dragged. Back into the places they once belonged. The doorbell rang. I didn't answer. But I heard them whisper. The house called us home. Episode 8. There's a room that only appears when I'm sad. It never shows up when I want it to. Only when I break. When the ache sits behind my ribs. Like a secret that forgot how to stay small. That's when the house opens it. The first time, I had just come back from the hospital. Empty. Dry. Heartbeat still echoing in my ears. But no one left to carry it. I dropped my coat by the door. Didn't turn on the lights. Just sat on the floor. And cried like the house was the only thing that could hear me. Maybe it was. Because when I looked up, there it was. A door where the pantry used to be. Wooden. Warm. Familiar. Like something I'd seen. In a dream I never told anyone about. I opened it. And there was a room. Soft light. Faint scent of lilacs. A window with lace curtains. And toys. Lined up neatly on the floor. A rocking horse. A worn teddy bear. A tiny dress folded over the back of a chair. No dust. No cobwebs. Just waiting. There was a photo on the nightstand. Of me. Smiling. But not alone. A little girl. Leaning into me. Hair like mine. Eyes like someone I almost remembered. On the back of the photo, a single line. You almost had her. I left the room without touching anything. Didn't sleep. Didn't speak. By morning, the door was gone. Pantry back in place. But I could still smell the lilacs. The second time it appeared was the night he left. No warning. Just a note. Folded once. With a ring inside. And one sentence. You're already somewhere I can't follow. I wept for hours. Quiet. Shoulders shaking. Hands clenched like they could hold together what was already gone. And when I looked up, the door was there again. This time, the room was different. Still gentle. Still warm. But older. A child's room turned into a teenager's sanctuary. A corkboard with notes. Photos of birthdays that never happened. Drawings and styles I never learned. And a journal. The cover read, "For when you forget who you were becoming." Inside, pages of a life I never lived, but missed like I had. Thoughts I'd never written. In a voice that felt like mine, but healed. The last page. She was yours, even if the world didn't make room. So the house did. I sat there until morning, just breathing, like I was holding someone who still lived in the corners of me. By daylight, the door was gone. Again, no trace, except one thing. A music box on the kitchen counter, still playing, and inside it, a lock of hair, soft, light brown, tied with a red thread. I don't know whose it is, but sometimes, when the grief returns, and the ache becomes too loud, I sit on the floor again, and I wait, not for comfort, but for the room. Episode 9. My family never had twins, but the house does. Ben was always quiet. But this Ben, the one I saw in the hallway last night, was still in the way that statues are, still in the way that memory sometimes freezes, just before it breaks. He was standing outside the green room, the one that only appears when someone thinks too hard about loss. He looked at me, smiled, but not like Ben. His smile was too clean, too practiced, like it had been learned from watching us. Too long. I blinked, and he was gone, but the smell of rain lingered. And Ben never liked rain. Later, I asked him, the real one, my Ben, were you upstairs last night? He frowned. No, I had the dream again. The one with a hallway full of mirrors and a boy that looks like me but doesn't blink. I didn't tell him. I'd seen that boy, that he didn't blink, because he didn't need to. He was already watching. From behind the walls. That afternoon, I found a drawing on the fridge. Not Ben style, but definitely in his handwriting. A family of 4. Mom, Dad, me, and 2 Bens. One was holding a red balloon. The other, a knife, underneath, in shaky letters. Only one can leave. I asked Dad. He went pale. When you were born, he said. Ben came after. But for 2 minutes, the doctor thought there were 2 heartbeats. Then one vanished. He said it like a fact, like a stone dropping into water. But the ripples never stopped. That night, I heard them talking. The 2 Bens. Same voice, same laugh, but different rhythm. Like one had lived longer and seen more, too much more. I crept down the hall, stopped at the door, and through the crack, I saw them sitting across from each other, mirrored, one blinking, one not. Then in unison, they turned to look at me, smiled, and said, "You'll have to choose soon." The next morning, only one Ben remained, but I don't know which. He hums songs I've never taught him, finishes my sentences too early, and once, when I called his name, he looked up and whispered. The other one still remembers being loved. Episode 10. I caught the house whistling my grandfather's song. It started in the vents. Soft, slow, off-key, a whistle, 3 notes, then pause, then again. At first, I thought it was Ben. He whistles sometimes, absent-mindedly, while reading, while waiting. But this was different, older, slower, almost careful, like the house was trying to remember. The tune stopped me cold, because I knew it, not from childhood, not from a recording, from a single night I was never supposed to remember. I was 6, in the hospital, fevered, floating. Mom was asleep in the corner chair, and I heard it through the vent in the ceiling. 3 notes, then pause, then the voice of my grandfather, long dead. "Come home, little star." I never told anyone. I thought it was a fever dreaming. Until now, because last night, the house whistled it again. Clear, steady, alive, and when I followed the sound, it led me to a door that should not exist, between the linen closet and the bathroom. Old wood, warped at the bottom, as if it had been soaked. Long ago, the doorknob burned when I touched it, not with heat, with memory. Inside, a room I'd never seen. And yet, I knew it. Green wallpaper, faded maps on the wall, an armchair that smelled like pipe smoke and cinnamon, and on the windowsill, a harmonica, old, cracked, exactly like the one Grandpa used to play on nights when the power went out, except we buried that with him. I picked it up. It was warm and etched into the silver plating, faint but legible. "Sing her home as she forgets the stars." I dropped it, and the house, it whistled again, but not from the vents, from beneath the floorboards. I fell to my knees, pressed my ear down, and I swear he was there, breathing, not just air, but words. "She's close, but the fire still waits." I stood. The wallpaper was peeling now. Beneath it, scorch marks, a fire, one no one told me about, but I felt it, ash in my lungs, smoke in my teeth, and behind it, a baby's cry, muffled, echoing, trapped in a night that burned before I was born. I asked Dad. He turned off the TV, looked at me like I'd spoken a curse. He tried to save her, he said, but the room took them both. Only the song made it out. That night, I found the harmonica on my pillow, still warm, still humming, and scrawled in the dust on my windowsill, a message: "If you hear the 4th note, don't answer." Episode 11. The house wants me to have a baby, but not mine. The dreams began 3 nights in a row, always the same. I'm standing in the nursery, the one that doesn't exist, except it does when I close my eyes. The crib is there, white, rocking. A mobile spins above, each shape turning into an eye. When I stare too long, there's a cry, but not a baby's, more like a memory being born. I look down. My hands are full, heavy, a child, but not mine. She's older than she should be, hair down her back, eyes like history, skin like secrets. And she calls me not mom, not mother, but keeper. The fourth night, I woke up with my hands on my stomach, as if cradling something that had already left or was never there to begin with. That morning, I found a pacifier on my pillow, worn, used, monogrammed with a single letter, A. Amara or someone else? I asked Dad. He didn't blink, just said, "The house knows when it's missing something. It fills its own holes." I went to the attic, pulled open the old chest. Inside, a rattle, a birth certificate without a name, a dress, still stained at the collar, and a letter, no envelope, written in soft, feminine cursive. If she comes through you, she will remember all of us, but she won't belong to you. She belongs to the house. That night, I slept sitting up, afraid to dream, but it didn't matter, because this time the dream came to me, wide awake, 3:03 a.m. The mirror shifted, its glass pulsed, and behind the surface, a hospital room, me on the bed, pale, still, a baby in my arms. But the baby opened her mouth and spoke, not in words, but in images, flashes, a girl drowning in letters, a staircase covered in blood, a rocking chair rocking on its own with me in it, but aged, faded, whispering names that weren't mine. Then she looked up, eyes locked on mine, and said, in my voice, "You already agreed before you were born." I collapsed, woke up on the hallway floor, and on my stomach, in chalk, a circle, drawn by a small hand. Inside it, a single word, soon. Episode 12. The name on the birth certificate wasn't mine. I wasn't looking for it. I was looking for a receipt. 4 light bulbs, of all things. The drawer in the old desk stuck. I pulled harder, and the whole compartment came loose. Behind it, a yellowed folder, tied with red thread. The paper inside was thin, brittle, cracking like skin that had waited too long to be touched. The first page, birth certificate, issued March 19th, 1893. Location, this house. Name, Lena Marin Hollow. Mother, unknown. Father, deceased. I stopped breathing, because that's my name. Exactly. First, middle, last. Even the looping curl of the L matched the way I signed my name. Without thinking, the paper was dated 132 years ago and stamped by a doctor whose signature I recognize from a book Dad keeps locked in the safe, the one with all the deaths in this house. I flipped the page. A photo, black and white, worn. A baby, not me, but the shape of the eyes, the crease in the chin, the way the right hand curled inward, identical. Below the photo, first iteration, vessel accepted, memory dormant. I read faster. Notes, pages, observations, each about me, but written long before I was born. Fourth return shows instability. She resists the room. 7th cycle, partial awakening at age 6. 10th, agrees but forgets. I dropped the folder, stepped back. The walls creaked, not like wood, like breathing. I ran to the mirror, the one in the green room, looked at myself, and for a moment, it wasn't me, or not just me, it was them. All the versions, all the returns, layer over my face like fingerprints, pressed into wet clay, and in the glass, the reflection of the birth certificate, still on the floor, only now it had changed. The date smudged, the ink reformed, next date of birth, pending. I whispered, "What am I?" The mirror smiled, not cruel, not kind, just inevitable, and answered, In my voice, you're the story the house tells. When no one else is left to remember, that night, I burned the papers, watched them curl into ash. But the next morning, the certificate was back on my desk. Clean, fresh, today's date printed clearly, and a single line underneath, Iteration 13 begins soon.